HAAS is still looking for a driver for the 2023 season. And even though they said that Mick Schumacher would have a better chance when it comes to picking the driver that would work with Magnussen, they have probably changed their minds and are not focusing on the German driver anymore. Besides Mick, talks with Hülkenberg have been going on for a really long time, and Steiner finally opened up when it comes to the experienced German driver replacing his younger friend from Germany. HAAS is right now actively looking for a driver to work with Magnussen from 2023 and later. And even though many people are quick to say bad things about the young German driver for not being consistent, many forget that the last time the team got points was in Austria. Magnussen hasn't been good either, and many times Mick was able to do better than the Danish driver in both qualifying and racing sessions. But Magnussen has a contract with HAAS for 2023 while Mick doesn't. Mick has caused some really bad crashes in the 2022 season, especially in Jeddah and Monaco. The second one couldn't have happened at a worse time because Mick had already started talking with HAAS to continue his contract. But according to reports, the Monaco crash, which was the second one that cost around $1 million, was the point when the team started to stop the talks. After that, Mick found good speed at the Canadian Grand Prix, and even though he didn't get points because of car problems, he was having a really good race. The next two Grand Prix races were amazing for him as he managed to finish 8th place and 6th place in Silverstone in Austria. But this is the last time that he got points in HAAS, and according to HAAS, the owner of the team, Mick doesn't have the luxury of crashing cars whenever he feels like it. When talking about the young German, HAAS said, "We're just waiting. We need Mick to bring some points, and we're trying to give him as much time as possible to see what he can do. If he wants to stay with us, he's got to show us that he can get some more points." "That's what we're waiting for," said Jean, who then continued to talk about Mick's crashes and his inconsistency throughout the 2022 season. In this sport, being kind of a new driver, the sport doesn't allow it. It's just too expensive. If you make any mistakes in choosing drivers or strategy or tire selection, it's costing you millions of dollars. I think Mick has a lot of potential, but, he costs a fortune and he's wrecked a lot of cars that have cost a lot of money that we just don't have. Now, if you bring us some points and you are Verstappen and you wreck cars, we'll deal with it. But when you're in the back and you wreck cars, that's very difficult. If he wins the next one, he's in. Somewhere in between there is a gray area. Steiner spoke recently about the chances that Mick will continue as HAAS's driver for the 2023 season and later. When talking about this matter, the Italian said that the advantage is always with the driver that is currently driving the car. In this case, Mick Schumacher. Absolutely, if you're working with somebody for 2 years, that's an advantage. The person who's already there always has the advantage. It's a home advantage. If you can have somebody you work with for 2 years, it's better than bringing somebody new in because, as I always said, you don't have the learning time. That's why we brought Kevin back as well, because he was here, he was out a year, but he knew everybody, and that's always an advantage when you start from somewhere. Still, Mick's future with HAAS is far away from certain, and according to reports, the team has given him until the Mexican Grand Prix to prove himself. Besides Mick, HAAS is currently talking to Hülkenberg, and Steiner gave us an update as to where the talks currently stand. With Nico, I spoke to him. "I've known Nico for a long time, better than I know Daniel. We're talking, but nothing has been done yet," said Steiner, who continued to talk about the possibility of Ricciardo replacing Mick Schumacher in the near future. Even though the Australian said that he'd rather sit out a season than drive for a back-of-the-pack team, if he's interested in us, he's not shy to call me up. I'm not going to chase him down. I want him to decide what he wants to do for himself first before being talked into something. I think he's a good driver, and I don't know how he got in the situation he's in now, but I think he needs to be honest with himself and decide what he's going to do. For us, he would be a big hit. He was a race winner just last year. I think highly of him as a driver, and I have no idea why he doesn't perform right now. That is for him to figure out. Even though the Australian has pointed out multiple times that he's not interested in driving for a bottom team such as HAAS or Williams, that doesn't mean that the American team won't be interested. After all, not many drivers can afford the Luxury of taking a break because there are so many drivers that are waiting on the sidelines, eager to prove themselves. Yet again, if you are a driver like Alonso, Schumacher, or Raikkonen, you can take breaks because you are a proven champion. That couldn't be said for Ricciardo, and if some common sense comes to him by any chance, he would accept either role that's offered to him, whether that's in Haas or Williams. But according to Steiner, it's up to Mick to prove whether or not he is a worthy candidate for the Haas seat. If I'm honest, it's still 50-50. We will not make a decision between Austin and Mexico simply because there's not enough time. The next time would be after Mexico because we would have more time to deal with it. As an athlete, you're always under pressure. He knows he has to perform. We're talking about it openly. Pressure isn't a bad thing because with pressure you also get opportunity, and I think he can handle it well. We returned from Japan on the same plane and he was in a pretty good mood. He grew up in a racing family and knows what it's about. It's part of his job. Mick is also in a very difficult situation because if it's not for the seat, the only one that will be available for him is Williams. The British team has spoken recently about the opportunity of having Mick as a starting driver. As Jos Capito sighed, Mick is an option for us. He also deserves to stay in Formula One. We'll see if that happens, but he's definitely an option for us. If you look at George Russell, he made mistakes as a second-year driver at Williams and he still developed. Besides this, Williams are likely to consider drivers like Logan Sargent or Nico Hülkenberg. There were some talks about Alpine potentially sending De Vries to Williams in order to prepare him for a seat in the main team. But now that they signed Gasly, it's very unlikely that this deal is going to see the light of day. Mick has only got 4 races in front of him to prove that he's still worthy of the Haas seat. Even though he hasn't necessarily done a bad job in the previous races, still, when your seat is literally on fire, you have to give 120% if you want to keep it. All rumors aside, there have been reports about Nico intensifying his training sessions. As the German himself said this at an event for Aston Martin, many insiders have already placed Hülkenberg in Haas's seat, which would mean that Mick's time with the American team is coming to an end. Who knows, maybe in 2023 or in the future. There will be an opportunity to return to Formula One, said Nico. But is Nico a good choice for Haas? Even though he and Magnussen have buried the hatchet after the 2017 Hungarian Grand Prix, it's very likely that close and intense battles will happen between these two drivers, if their team manages to provide them with a car that will finish consistently in the points. On top of that, Hülkenberg doesn't have a podium finish in his career, and we all know that he has a very rich career in racing in F1. It's not like Haas will fight for podiums from 2023 onwards, but it's always nice to have a more accomplished driver if you choose to replace the young and potential one due to his failing to live up to your expectations. That is why Haas is more interested in Ricciardo, and with their increased interest in the 8-time race winner and Hülkenberg, we might see the last of Schumacher in 2022. With that being said, what do you think is next for Schumacher and Haas? Let us know in the comments below.